Even before COVID-19 restrictions went into place, Chicago has been experiencing high water levels at the lakefront. The lake is 3 times higher than usual for this season, and as you can see behind me, the waves are coming up and crashing onto the trail. Despite cold winds and recent snowfall, thousands have shown up to participate in Chicago's Women's March. Activists have gathered in Grant Park and are making their way down Michigan Avenue to rally in Federal Plaza. Here in Beloit, Wisconsin, DePaul's indie studios film Sun King premiered on February 22nd. Now the film is back, winning its first ever award. It's here at Remember Where You Are, Mia Lopez says artists have converged different mediums in order to tell stories about colonialism, culture, and identity. As for what the troupe plans to do with that $5,300, that's still in the works, but it will go towards new experiences and adventures the girls will go on in the upcoming year. Here, the exhibit is celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Black flashcards, but it's also celebrating the people and the faces behind them, combining art and science. Afra Bain challenges the roles of 17th century women by discussing gender politics. This comedy, The Rover, seems relevant even centuries later. On Saturday, January 18th, demonstrators in Chicago and across the country gathered for the 4th Women's March. And once again, President Trump was a major focus of the marchers.
The policies of President Trump have generally been unpopular among women, especially women in the suburbs who traditionally had been part of the Republican coalition. And they're moving to the Democratic side. And we saw this in a big way in the 2018 elections, and we may see it again this November.
Participating in this year's protest was DePaul's Women's March group, founded by sophomore Riley Reed.
I reached out to the Women's March Chicago chapter here in the city, and I just said, I want to start a college chapter on my campus. How can I do that? How can I get started? And they were immensely helpful. They gave me all sorts of resources and connections, and they really helped me build this from the ground up.
Reed believes that the efforts of the Women's March will continue, even if President Trump is not reelected in November.
I mean, the biggest way that people can, say we don't stand for him, we don't stand for this of what he's doing if he's not removed, is to vote him out of office.
Despite cold winds and recent snowfall, thousands have shown up to participate in Chicago's Women's March. Activists have gathered in Grant Park and are making their way down Michigan Avenue to rally in Federal Plaza. Demonstrators voiced many different concerns, including reproductive rights. They also called on Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker to deal more with climate change. Women's March leaders say they're inspired by the efforts of students like DePaul's Riley Reed.
High school and college students are, first of all, they are our future leaders. And we want to make sure that they not only see us in action, get an idea of how you can help to do this or how you can do this, but the benefits of it as well. So hopefully this is helping to prepare them to lead as we know that they are going to.
Women's March 2020. It again brought thousands of people out throughout the country, and it came at a crucial time, as President Trump is being impeached, and the nation is facing a critical election next November. For Good Day DePaul, I'm Natalie Wade. Privacy has become a major concern for many users of smartphone apps, including college students, and now that concern is growing. This after a Washington Post story revealed that some colleges are electronically tracking students' whereabouts through an app on their phones. Rick Carter says he developed one of these apps in 2015 to help athletes get to class on time and remain eligible to play their sports. Carter is the CEO of Spotter EDU, a Chicago company that now works with over 50 colleges that use their app to track students' attendance. DePaul says it's not one of those schools and that it does not use any student tracking apps. Carter is a former DePaul men's basketball assistant coach who was fired in 2017. He is now under a court order after allegedly making threats against DePaul men's basketball coach Dave Lato and athletic director Jean Lenti Ponsetto. Carter feels his motives and actions were misunderstood.
With you at the end of the day, they didn't want my services anymore as an assistant coach. I was in a really good situation because I had a company that was thriving, so I decided to part ways with them. I started running my company, and That's kind of it.
Carter and the colleges he's working with say his tracking technology is actually helping students. They contend it makes them more likely to be on time for class. He said he does not believe it's a violation of student privacy.
If the student's not there, we don't know where they're at, nor do we ever want to know where they're at. And I think a lot of people kind of get the way Spotter works confused.
It works by giving off a unique low Bluetooth signal programmed specifically for an individual classroom and comes to life only during class time. Each student is assigned a random code by which only the school can identify them.
We're not trying to collect data on students of where they're at all the time and sell that information, right? Like, that's not what we're into.
Spotter EDU isn't the only company providing student tracking information, and some of these tracking apps can determine where a student is on campus at various times. The schools say this allows them to possibly discern problems the students may have, like depression or eating disorders, and then help them with these problems. But some feel these tracking apps are a possible breach of privacy.
Students are not, able to opt out of the system, even if we say they can opt out, or there's pressure on it in that your professor has said that to take this class, you need to be a part of this attendance tracking system. And so you might click the button or set up the app right there, not realizing that you may have given away broader privacy implications of where you've been on campus at different parts of the day that go beyond just that class.
It's one of the major issues of our time, the benefits of technology versus the possible violations of our privacy. And it's an issue that will continue to play out at American universities. For Good Day DePaul, I'm Natalie Wade. DePaul School of Cinematic Arts Indie Studio started 3 years ago as an initiative to help foster and mentor students making micro-budgeted feature films.
So I spent the last 10 years producing and directing a bunch of really small films, and I wanted to sort of transfer and relay that everything I've learned to the students to inspire them and to get out there and create and tell their stories.
This past year, students did just that.
When the opportunity to direct a feature film in film school came up, there was no way that I was going to turn it down, especially when it's something that not many other universities in America offer.
The film they produced is called Sun King.
Sun King is a comedy. It's a feature-length comedy about Louis Liu, who is an eccentric guy who has convinced himself that he's the reincarnated soul of King Louis XIV.
We are the sun. We are God.
Here in Beloit, Wisconsin, DePaul's Indie Studios film Sun King premiered on February 22nd. Now the film is back, winning its first ever award.
And the winner is Sun King.
Sun King won the award for Best Illinois Feature Film, a surprise to the Sun King team, which had to get creative to complete such an ambitious project with a small budget.
And that's sort of the nature of this film, right? You have to pull favors from family and from friends. You have to shoot in your grandma's house, but it works out, That's the heart of indie filmmaking.
One of the things that stuck out most about this movie was a diverse and inclusive cast.
Today, especially with the nomination and victory of Parasite winning Best Picture, along with a slew of other Asian films that are coming to the surface, and now Sun King. It's a great time to be a filmmaker when you're trying to represent underrepresented demographics.
For us, this process is really about the journey. It's about the students going out and doing something that they typically wouldn't do, thinking outside the box and using their creative resources to really overcome any challenges they face. And then the outcome is really just icing on the cake.
For Good Day DePaul, I'm Natalie Wade. DePaul's theater school, located on the Lincoln Park campus, is producing The Rover, a play created by the first English woman to make an independent living as a writer, Aphra Behn. The play is set in 1656 Naples, Italy, revolving around a set of noble Spanish sisters and a group of English cavaliers. The director of the production, Melanie K. Pons, says Aphra Behn was a trailblazer.
Aphra was definitely ahead of her time in a really wonderful way, but also, sadly, I think we ourselves are still a little behind.
The story sends a strong message about female empowerment as the main characters struggle to fight against their family's marital demands.
I'm marrying Antonio here, which you must do tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
The play features romance, comedy, and action-packed fight scenes, but also carries a strong message from the writer Bain. Afra Bain challenges the roles of 17th century women by discussing gender politics. This comedy, The Rover, seems relevant even centuries later.
One of the great things about The Rover is actually how relevant it is today, especially with women having their own agency and being able to say yes and no to things and like basically kind of being able to forge their own path.
I think Afra Ben and I think our production is trying to talk about how it's still a trap, that, you know, this world is still a man's world and these women are still trapped in it and they're just going from one cage and jumping into another.
This play, although very Shakespearean in style, is a comedy that paved the way for many female playwrights, poets, and novelists by exploring the roles of men and women. For Good Day DePaul, I'm Natalie Wade.